Living in a digital era and having technology as part of our daily lives, do you ever wonder how computers work? How do they manage to process the data they receive? Do you ever wonder how superheroes like Iron Man made his suit act as artificial intelligence?
That's Jarvis. He runs the house.
The answer is the processor. The central processing unit is the one responsible for all of it. A CPU may be physically small, but its potential is great and powerful that it can make different types of devices, from the smallest one to the largest. Let me tell you everything about the central processing unit.
Do you know anything about this stuff?
I know everything about this stuff.
The computer central processing unit, often referred to as a processor, is the portion of a computer that retrieves and executes instructions. CPU resides in almost all devices you own, whether it's a smartwatch, a computer, or a thermostat.
You are not authorized to access this area.
They're responsible for processing and executing instructions and acts the brain of your devices. Here, we explain how CPU interact with other parts of your devices and what makes them so integral to the computing process. Being the brain of a system, it consists of an arithmetic and logic unit or ALU, a control unit, various registers, and all the circuitry needed to process input, store data, and output results. The CPU constantly follows instructions from the computer programs that instruct it which data to process and how to process it. In the context of modern devices, a desktop or a laptop has a dedicated CPU that performs many processing functions for the system. Mobile devices and some tablets instead utilize a system on chip, which is a chip that packages the CPU alongside other components. Intel and AMD both offer CPUs with graphics chips and memory stored on them too, meaning they can do more than standard CPU functions. Now, let me take you inside onto the CPU. At the hardware level, a CPU is an integrated circuit, also known as a chip. An integrated circuit integrates millions or billions of tiny electrical parts, arranging them into circuits and fitting them all into a compact box. Some of those layers are physical devices, like the chip and transistors. And some of those layers are abstractions, like logic gates and circuits. It's impressive that we can put together seemingly simple devices like the logic gates to create CPUs that power complex devices, like our phones, computers, and even self-driving cars. Now, here's how CPU actually works. For example, a simple calculator program might instruct the CPU to take two numbers, 2 and 2, add them, and send back the result. The CPU can process those instructions easily thanks to a control unit that knows how to interpret program instructions and arithmetic logic unit that knows how to add numbers. At its core, a CPU takes instruction for a program or application and performs a calculation. This process breaks down into three key stages: fetch, decode, and execute. A CPU fetches the instruction from ROM, decodes what instruction actually is, and executes the instruction using relevant parts of the CPU. Knowing the working principle of a CPU, how do you think a computer works without it? Basically, we could not run programs on a computer without CPU. No CPU, no boot. It is the brain of a computer, remember? Just like your body, it won't work well without it. Now that you are equipped with all the necessary information about CPUs, you are in a better position to make an educated choice about computing hardware.